So I want to ask you to begin with a question which I think is actually a very important question, which is, what is the ultimate purpose of school-based education? I guess you'd be thinking that maybe the aim of being at school is to gain good qualifications, to get into a good university, to get a good job, and as a preparation for life. I'm just interested to know, is there something that underpins all that? Is there a higher objective? Is there something greater than that, which would actually support all those things, but could be seen as an ultimate purpose in itself? And I think, this is just my view, but I think the key purpose of school-based education is to help children become brilliant learners. Our children are all facing a future that is difficult to predict, that we don't know the jobs that our children will take. In fact, many of the jobs our children will end up in haven't been invented yet. Now, what is the key skill for dealing with, taking advantage of an environment that you can't predict? The key skill has to be being a good learner, doesn't it? But the objective at the end of school-based education surely has to be able to learn by yourself, without the support of teachers, to be able to learn from any person at any time, through any media, in any place. Now, I think effective learning requires three things: efficacy, agency, and action. So efficacy is the belief that success in learning is possible. First, a child has to believe it's possible for them to succeed in learning. Belief is first. Secondly is agency. And agency, I think, are the skills, strategies, and techniques of effective learning. And the third part is action. And what I mean by action is taking action, making mistakes, and failing well. So how do we build belief within our children that success in learning is possible for them? Well, I think it starts with role models. Because role models of people who have created success for themselves out of learning or education generally are not the role models that turn up on the television, are they? And yet, if your children admire anyone at all, one thing I always ask them to do is to explore that person's biography, to actually read their biography, to find out as much as they can about them. And they suddenly discover that that world-class athlete who just won a gold medal, behind that person somewhere are 10,000 hours of seriously hard work, an enormous amount of success and failure. And it doesn't have to be a world-class athlete. It can be the person down the road who set up a good business. It can be the person who in the neighbourhood who's a good artist, who's a poet, who's a creative in some other field, who has created for themselves and their family a successful life. And of course your own stories fit in here as well. But I always recommend to parents that the stories aren't always the stories of success. That in fact a lot of those stories should be the times when things didn't work out well, where you stumbled and fell over, where terrible things happened, and what you learnt from that, and what changes you made, and how you overcame that, and what you did next. Because those are stories that children can relate to. Now, I don't think children develop self-confidence through competition. The only way we create self-confidence in children is getting children to notice that they have improved against themselves, not against someone else. And so we need to actually highlight the change, the positive change in our children's lives, comparing themselves with themselves. And if we do it visually, like the marks on the door, then it stands out, and it stands out in their mind. And that helps develop self-confidence, a feeling that I've got better than I was on all these measures. Third one is self-esteem. Now, self-esteem is a really interesting concept, but it's kind of difficult to define, and we don't even really, no one really has got a handle on what this means, but it's got to be something to do with value, doesn't it? Whether a person feels valued inside themselves. But I do visit a lot of countries, and I do see in some countries parents who only seem to value their children for the behaviour they display and for the grades they achieve. So what that is doing, it is linking their self-esteem to their performance, to their behaviour, to something that they do. It's not linking their value to the person that they are. So I think one of the key things for parents to do is to separate out the human being that your child is from the human doing that your child does. In other words, I think it's very, very important to always value your child for the wonderful human being they are, and look at their performance, their grades, their behaviour as a separate thing. And lastly, reaction to challenges. Now, one of the key things that's happening for your children every single day in every single class at school is they are being challenged to learn new stuff, right? So a teacher's saying, here's some new algebra, and here's some new science, and here's some new... They're being challenged to learn new things continuously. Now, every time a teacher challenges your daughter to learn something new, you'll find your daughter has a reaction to that, a reaction to challenge. Now, helping them learn how to manage that reaction is really critical. One of the things I do on my courses is teach people how to do this. Teach people how to juggle. Oops. Now, just over there, I've got this big, huge bag full of juggling balls. And what say I took the next 10 minutes and I taught all you guys how to juggle? How would that be? Do you notice what's going on inside your head right now? Do you notice that? Because I'll bet you're saying something to yourself like, is he serious? And you're still not sure, are you? And then you see after that came something else. And there'll probably be some people in the room who said to themselves, oh, that'd be wonderful, I'd love to learn to juggle, I've always wanted to do that. You don't need to put your hand up, it's okay. And there's probably someone else sitting there who's saying to themselves, oh no, not me, not going to get me up there. And there'll be someone else who's sitting there saying, absolutely not. That's completely impossible. The man must be mad. I'd never do that. I can't do that sort of stuff. I've never been any good at that. Now, what you're experiencing is a reaction to a challenging situation. And this is what I mean. Your daughter goes through this many, many times every day. So the point I'm trying to make is that you've got to help your children to overcome the reaction that they have to challenging situations, especially challenging learning situations, where the bar has just been raised. Oh, new stuff to learn. How do they react to that? Now, a lot of the reaction, as I mentioned, comes out in words. Now, one of the things that children often say to themselves when they're given a challenge is they'll say, I can't do it. What I think we need to do is we need to have a strategy, a word-based strategy that children can use which actually propels them forward. And the simplest one I know of is to change every I can't into I haven't yet. Because you see, if you haven't yet learned to juggle, well, you haven't yet learned to juggle. It's just a fact. If you haven't done that algebra problem yet, well, you haven't done the algebra problem yet. It's just a fact. But notice what happens when you say to yourself, I haven't done it yet. You're suggesting to yourself that maybe you will, that it's possible that you might. And that's all your mind needs to give you more success, is the possibility of success. Cognitive skills. Now, cognitive skills, other skills you might think of as study skills. Information management. What have we got up there? Making good notes, asking good questions, summarising key points, skim reading, remembering, time management, studying. That's just a sample. I'm not trying to say that's inclusive in any sense. Just a sample of the types of skills we're talking about. Cognitive skills. Relatively easy to teach, relatively easy to learn, but very, very important. If a child doesn't have those skills, they're significantly disadvantaged. They're simple skills. There's nothing particularly amazing about them. They're simple, but they are very, very important. Then, of course, we have the affective skills. Now, what affective means is affect, attitude. The skills that often are called soft skills, the skills that underpin all action, like self-motivation, perseverance, resilience, emotional control, and something called mindfulness. And these are all things that can be taught, can be learned. And there is a third set of skills which tend to get called metacognitive skills. It's an odd term, but all it means is helping children to notice their own thinking. So it's not even really skills, it's more of an awareness that we can raise in children, helping them to notice their learning and thinking strategies, try new strategies, and continually improve their learning effectiveness. Action. Having a go, making mistakes and failing well. Now, what this is about, this is all to do with a model I developed in about 2007, and I was looking at a connection between resilience and academic success for high ability students. In reaction to failure, there was only one way to fail well, and it was simply this. It was acknowledging your failure, saying, yes, I failed at that. Being prepared to say, yes, I failed at that. In other words, I didn't achieve my goal. Taking responsibility for your own actions, saying, yes, that was me, I did that, I did that, I did that. Working out what you did wrong. Oh yeah, I probably could have done that differently and that differently. making changes and having another go, doing it again, going back through that same thing again. It wasn't good enough just to acknowledge that, yeah, I failed, and yeah, I'll do it differently next time, and just, you had to actually go back and do that same thing again, repeat the same process in order to fail well. Now keep in mind, all the kids at the top had learned how to do this. With every single thing that they didn't achieve what they wanted, they'd go back and redo the whole thing, whatever it was. Whereas all the children at the bottom, well, there wasn't one way to fail badly, there was a whole range of ways to fail badly. Like blaming the school or the system. It's a dumb school, it's a dumb education system, it's not my fault. Blaming other people. It's my mum's fault, it's my dad's fault, or more usually it's my teacher's fault. She didn't teach me that stuff. Pretending you never get or do anything wrong. This was students who, even though they were failing, were saying, everything's fine, I'm doing fine, don't even worry about it. Everything will be fine. Just completely ignoring it. So were other students who were adding drama to failure to avoid dealing with it. You know, this is the kind of student who'd say, I got a B on my geography assignment and my life is over. I can't go to school, I'm not going to be able to hold my head up in class. Add a whole lot of drama to it, because then it becomes too big to deal with, you see? You make it so big, I can't deal with it. And then the last one was avoiding any activity that could possibly result in failure. Now this was children who would only ever do something that they were already good at. They would never deviate off that path. They would only do what they were totally confident they could do already. And if they were ever required to do something off that straight and narrow path, the first time they had any difficulty with it, they'd drop it like a hot potato and go back to what they felt confident with. So in other words, they'd never challenge themselves to do anything beyond what they thought they could already do. They'd never put themselves in a situation where they could possibly fail. It seems to be that students who learn to fail well do better. But not only that, parents who learn to do well, who learn to fail well do better. Teachers who learn to fail well do better. Schools that learn to fail well do better. Businesses that learn to fail well do better. And it's a very simple model, but it seems to have some validity. So I think we grow resilient children by encouraging them to take on new challenges and use failure as feedback. Encourage them to do things that are outside their comfort zone, things that they're not comfortable with. And they will have some failure, and that's a good thing, because they use failure as feedback, recognising that failure is just giving you a message that you haven't got it right yet. So make a change and have another go. If your children have any problems understanding or learning schoolwork, it's very important to focus them on the things they can control. Because so much of learning at school is out of their control. They don't get to choose their teachers, they don't get to choose what's in the subject, they don't get to choose who tests them, who examines them, who marks them. There's only a couple of things that are in their control, and those are effort and strategy use. And the idea seems to be that if you can connect your approval or your praise to a factor over which the child has some control, then they can always do more of it. If you connect your praise to something over which they have no control, then there's nothing they can do about it. It's simple, isn't it? To get to where you are today, how many of you had to work hard? Anyone ever have to work hard to get to where you are? Anyone have to suffer physically, mentally, emotionally? Anyone have to forego any pleasures in their life? And anyone suffered personal or business setbacks? Okay, and how many of you want to give your children the benefits of your struggles without them having to go through the distress? This is what parenting's about, isn't it? I don't want you to have to suffer the way I have to suffer. I've worked hard all my life to make your life easier. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. How many of you think that the difficulties you have faced, the problems you have overcome, the suffering you have endured have helped you to develop the resilience you need to create the success for yourself and your family you enjoy today? It's only by overcoming obstacles, by facing challenges, by suffering and recovering that we develop resilience. So the trick with kids is simply to make them suffer. No, what I mean is, so why protect your children from responsibility and the possibility of failure? You don't help by doing that. So I think that all our children need to learn how to earn what they get, organise their own lives, take responsibility for their own actions, fight their own battles, make their own decisions and take all the consequences, succeed, and on the way to succeeding, fail well. So that's pretty much it from me. I've got a nice quote here from Goethe from the late 1700s, which says, sums it all up, which says too many parents make life hard for their children by trying too zealously to make it easy for them. So thank you very much.